Good morning, JSerra. My name is Mrs. Morales, and this is Miss Celaya. We're two of your counselors here at JSerra. We wanted to take a moment and talk to you about finals. Friday will be elective finals, and next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, will be your core classes. So today we're going to give you some tips to help you navigate this time as well as you can. Miss Celaya?
All right, so first I want to start off with a few action items that I'm hoping that you will consider as you start prepping for those finals. First and foremost, it's pretty simple. Start early, like today, right? I want to challenge you to start from today, set aside some time to review a little bit for each class. If you have that in your mind and you start that from today, you'll have enough time and you'll be able to cover every single class. The next item is create your own study guide. You know, every single class is going to give you a study guide. Don't just stick with that. Don't just answer the questions and think, hey, I'm done. We want you to take it a step further and really put together all of your course materials throughout from the beginning of the semester, put them in chronological order, and utilize that study guide as sort of just a starting point to make your own guide, right? Next is organize a group study session. What better way to learn the material than to teach each other, right? And to learn from each other. So gather a couple of your friends that are in your classes and say, hey, let's get together at my house. We'll have some coffee and let's go over this biology or whatever class that you're in, right? So make it interactive, because that's really how learning takes place, is if you make it interactive, and it will last longer in your brain too. The next is quizzing yourself. Actually, before that, I want you to create a study schedule and stick to it. So this is super important. You know, in the counseling office, we always talk about time management. So we want you to take that to heart and take that one step further as you prep for finals. Identify what your needs are and what your time constraints are. If you have sports commitments or if you have practice after school, make sure that you're very well aware of that and schedule some time, not just for those activities, but also for when you get home, you have your snack or your dinner, and then you get to work on your finals. And stick to that schedule, right? So if we start today, we have a full week, hopefully, of preparation for finals. Factor in that time, you know, even if it's an hour a day, to really maximize, you know, what you can do to review and study for those finals. Quiz yourself, or have somebody else quiz you. So again, kind of going in line with creating a study group. Having somebody quiz you really gets you to start thinking about, hey, have I learned this material? And how well do I know this material, right? Even if it's from the beginning of the semester, you're going to be asked to recall a lot of this information. So carve out some time to quiz yourself, either through Quizlets or flashcards, or get a couple of friends together, as I mentioned with the study group, and quiz each other. Or, you know, it's not a bad idea to have mom or dad quiz you too. Another thing is to study in chunks. So a lot of students that come into my office that we talk about study skills, one of the items that I challenge them to do is to study in big chunks of time. So if you're studying for 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, right? And then you've captured an hour's worth of work, because we do want to factor in some breaks, right? You want to give your brain a little bit of a rest, get up, get some blood flowing in your legs. You know, hopefully you've minimized the distractions, so putting your phone away, turning it off. During that break, that's when you can go get up, walk around, check your phone if you need to, right? See what's happened in Snapchat, you know, in the last 10 minutes, right? And then get right back to work for another 50 minutes, right? That gives your brain the rest that it needs to recharge, and then you can get right back to work. So study in chunks. Another thing is to really be aware of the kinds of tests that you are going to encounter. So a lot of your teachers have made mention, hopefully, the items or the kinds of questions that you might see, such as multiple choice, short answer, essays, things like that. So if you know that you're going to have multiple choice questions on your exam, you may want to focus on some memorization with flashcards. If you know that they're going to be more short answer or essay based, those are going to really require more comprehension. So you want to look at learning the material for just broader picture. Am I understanding this information? Can I make the connections that I'm being asked to make? You can do mind maps. You can do brainstorming visuals. Again, you can have people quiz you, things like that. So really be aware of the kinds of questions that you're going to encounter on that test and study appropriately. Last couple of things, using colors. Sometimes I tell my students, if you are writing down your notes on Post-it notes, posting them on your wall, it's a really good idea to use color where you write, because for whatever reason, our brain is able to process information sometimes a little bit more efficiently if we're not just using plain white. You can use a soft yellow or even a blue, and that really helps your brain to kind of focus on the information that's being put on those pages, right? Last but certainly not least, get some sleep. It's so crucial and so important to really give your brain the rest that it needs so that it can recall the information that you're asking it to recall. Well, in order to do that, you have to get at least a solid 7-8 hours of sleep at minimum, right? And one more thing, you want to also include some healthy, nutritious snacks. I think when we get stressed and when we're studying for finals, our inclination is to go for the sugary or the salty foods or the crunchy foods, right? And I want to challenge you to really try to steer clear of those, because that's not really brain food, and maybe reach for a bag of almonds or some fruits or vegetables, because that's really going to help your brain to power through some of these more stressful times. Okay, so some of these things I hope that you will incorporate into your study routine as you prepare for finals, and just know that the more that you prepare, the more foundation that you lay down for this preparation, the more in control you're going to feel. And when you feel in control, then the stress that you feel will hopefully be more manageable. Okay? And with that, I want to hand it over to Mrs. Morales.
Thank you, Ms. Alaya. So speaking of stress, I think finals is one of the most stressful times of the school year. And I want you to know that anxiety is actually very good and healthy. I think there's a false belief that we should never feel anxious ever in our life. But the problem is that if we never have anxiety, we'll never push ourselves to achieve a goal. Or if we are faced with some sort of danger, we won't know how to overcome it. So it's not about not experiencing anxiety, it's about managing our anxiety. Test anxiety is very common. It's very, very normal. I think it's one of the most common things that I see in my office. I know for Ms. Salaya and the other counselors as well. So I want to give you some tips to help manage your test anxiety. The first is do everything that Ms. Salaya said. That's step one. In addition to preparing before you actually walk into your exam, studying the material, the other thing I would recommend you do is visualize taking your test. It might sound a little crazy, but play in your mind a movie of what it would be like taking your test. Where is the room located? Will it be the first final or the second final? Who will your proctor be? Will you have pencils? Will you have pens? Will you have a backpack? Picture yourself walking in the room and sitting down. Where are you going to sit? Are you going to sit in the front, the middle, the back, the side? Where are you going to sit? And picture yourself taking this test. Are there multiple choice questions? Are there essay questions? Do you feel prepared for that? When we run through something visually, it kind of prepares our minds for what it will feel like to take that exam. And when you actually walk into the room, it'll almost feel comfortable, like you know what you're doing, and that will help lessen your anxiety. As you're preparing for your finals, each time, if you're going to study for math or biology, whatever test it is, visualize yourself taking that test. It can only be a minute or two, but you just want to take a moment to visualize that. And especially the night before, kind of run through the 2 exams that you'll have that day. The second thing, sleep. I know Ms. Slaya mentioned this. When we have a lack of sleep, we have a difficulty concentrating and recalling information, which if you think about it, concentration and recalling information would be really helpful for your finals. So sleep. Yes, prepare, do your study guides, but you've got to make sure that you're getting that sleep. The second thing that Ms. Slaya said that I want to reiterate is eating healthy foods. I myself am not a breakfast person. I wake up in the morning and I don't really eat breakfast. But on days where I know I'm going to have something important to do, I make sure that I eat some breakfast, because that food gives us our brain's energy that we need. So the morning of finals, even if you're not a breakfast person, eat something with protein and some healthy carbohydrates to give your brain that power, that energy it needs to recall information and concentrate. The third thing I want to mention is, as you're walking into your classroom to take your final, you've visualized it, you've slept, you've eaten, I want you to notice what kind of thoughts are running through your mind? Each one of us has an inner voice that talks to ourselves. It sounds a little crazy, but we do. That's kind of this voice in our heads giving us messages of what we believe about ourselves. Sometimes they're messages we've created on our own. Sometimes they're messages people have given us. Things like, oh, I can do this. I'm intelligent. I'm smart. Or maybe they're negative things. I'm stupid. I can't do this. I'm going to fail. You want to be aware of that self-talk that's going through your brain. And if it's negative, you want to shift it to either neutral, but ideally positive. Things like, I can do this. I've studied. I did my study guide. I got in a study group. I slept. I know I can do this. When we have negative self-talk, that is only going to increase our anxiety. So if you can shift any negative self-talk to neutral or positive self-talk, then you'll see a decrease in your anxiety. So you walk in, you're talking to yourself, not out loud because people might think you're crazy, do it internally. I can do this, I've got this. You sit down, you get your test. Don't stare at a blank page. When we sit there and we stare at a blank page, it only increases feelings of anxiety. So start doing something. Write your name down, write down the date. Start looking at the questions, write in the margins. Do something, just get started. And if you look at the questions and those seem a little bit too hard to tackle at that moment, flip the page, go to the next page. Or maybe you want to start at the back and do the essay questions first. Write a little outline before you start writing the essay. But do something. The longer you stare at that blank page, the more anxious you're going to feel, the more negative self-talk you'll start having, and then you might go into a full-blown panic attack, which we want to avoid, right? Okay, the other thing you want to do as you're taking your test is you want to focus on yourself. It's really easy to look around us and see, oh my gosh, she's writing so much. Oh my gosh, he already finished. If we're focusing on other people, we're going to lose sight of ourselves and we are going to become more anxious. So, as much as you can, just focus on what you're doing. What questions you're answering. You keep working on that test bit by bit. Don't focus on the other people, okay? The last thing I want to mention is if you're doing all these things, right? You slept, you ate, you visualized, you got positive self-talk going on, you're focusing on yourself. If you notice that your anxiety continues to rise, you want to do something, to calm yourself down. Two really quick, easy things you can do. One, deep breathing. When we get anxious, we take quick and shallow breaths. So you want to take deep and slow breaths. And one thing that I always encourage people to do is if you're breathing in and out, is to imagine what you want to breathe in and then imagine what you want to breathe out. So if you're taking a test and you're feeling really anxious, you want to breathe in calm and peace and knowledge and self-confidence. And you want to breathe out all that anxiety. Just take 4 to 5 deep, slow breaths, and that should help calm down that anxiety. If that doesn't work, if you have a bottle of water, take a couple sips of water. Water has shown to calm down our automatic nervous systems, which they go into hyperdrive when we're anxious. So you take some breaths, you take a couple sips of water, and hopefully that will kind of reset you a little bit and you can go back to taking your exam. If that doesn't work, one thing that I encourage students to do is in their minds to have a calm place. Somewhere that maybe you've been in real life, or maybe it's somewhere you want to go, but kind of close your eyes just for a couple minutes and picture being in that place. Maybe it's in the mountains, maybe it's at the beach, maybe it's on the Eiffel Tower, it could be anywhere. Just kind of picture yourself there. Go back to your positive self-talk. I can do this, I studied hard, I'm smart, I'm intelligent. Open your eyes, take a deep breath, and just keep going. And kind of like Dory in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. Just keep going. You guys got this. You guys are amazing students. I know that you can do it. Miss Celaya, we believe in you, right?
Absolutely.
And if you guys ever need anything, please come down to the counseling offices. There's a whole row of us. We're there to listen to you, to help you, and you're going to be great. Good job, J. Sarah.
Good luck.